Okay. For the DHCP now protocol, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP actually or usually used for IB version 4 service to automate the assignments of IPv4 address, subnet mask, gateway, any other networking parameters to the client from the DHCP server. So we have a client-server architecture here. So in general, DHCP considered as a dynamic addressing compared to the static. Static addressing, it's a static IP address assigned manually when we enter the IP address information, while DHCP is a dynamic, which means, for example, every time X host join the network, X host will request the DHCP in order to assign a local IP, what's the gateway, subnet mask details. So the IP address might be different at each time this host joining a local network, for example. So in general, when any host connect to the network, the DHCP server is contacted. We are going to see the process in the next slide. An IP address or an address will be requested from the server. So what the server will do in this case, after the host send the request to the server will select the available addresses range. So DHCP server selecting or chooses an address from the configured address range called a pool and assign one of these addresses leases to that host. Now, as we can see in many networks, we will have both. We will have a dynamic DHCP and static addressing. In general, dynamic DHCP used for the general purpose of the hosts or end user devices. So anytime an end user joins the network, the server or the DHCP will be contacted in order to perform the processes of the DHCP. While static addressing usually is used for the network devices. For example, the gateway, it should be an static address. Switches addresses, servers, printers, and so on. Now, let us check the DHCP operation, how the process are carried out to end up with an address leased to the client or the host. So, the process as the following: when an IPv4 DHCP configured device boots up, the device is connected, switched on, is connected to the network. The client at the first step will send a broadcast request or a broadcast message called DHCP discover. So as we see here, the client will send a DHCP discover message to identify all the available servers within that network. Which servers? The DHCP servers. Now, any available DHCP server, or for example, a single one, will send back a DHCP offer as a reply from the server. So this DHCP offer message offers a lease to the client. For example, the client sent the discover, the server, they said, I am here, I can assign with you an IP address, gateway, subnet mask details. Now, in case the client receives more than one offer from multiple DHCP servers, simply the client must select only one of those DHCP servers. After the DHCP server now send the DHCP offer and received by the client, we have select one of them in case we have multiple DHCP servers. The client now will send explicit request to that server. The server send the offer. So the client send DHCP request now message that identify the explicit server and lease offer that the client is accepting. I will get an IP from you, kindly lease for me this IP, for example. Once the request sent from the client, the server now will return back an acknowledgement message. So the acknowledgement to the client inform the client that the lease has been finalized. So now this is your local IP, this is your gateway, this is your subnet mask, and any other information. Now, in case we have done with the discover, we have received the offer, the client sent the request, but the client fails to receive the final DHCP acknowledgement. What we will do in this case, we must start again from the beginning, so the client will start from the DHCP discover message. So we'll repeat the process. Discovering a server, receiving a lease offer, send a request to that server until we receive the acknowledgement. Last protocol we are going to talk about it is the file sharing or the file transfer protocol, FTP. FTP was developed simply to allow a data transfer between a client and a server. FTP is an application, or a client is an application which runs on the computer that being used either to push or to pull a data from FTP server. So at the client side, we have two options now, or two operations. Either push a data to the server, which means the client can upload data to the server, or we pull a data from the server, so the client can download data from the server in this case. FTP operation can be divided into 3 steps. Step 1, the client will establish a connection with a server using TCP port 21. So in this session, the traffic will consist of the client command and the server replies. Step number 2, the client will establish another connection with a server for the actual data transfer now. Not a connection session, but actual data transfer by using TCP but port 20 instead of port 21. So now this connection created every time the data to be transfers. Step 3 now, the client or the connection now, the transfer of data can be implemented or occur in both of the direction, from the client to the server or from the server to the client. In case the clients want to download the data from the server, we will use the pull. Otherwise, in case a client can or wants to upload data to the server, we are going to use a push. Finally, a different solution or a different file sharing services called server message block, SMB. Server message block is a client server architecture request response file sharing protocol. Servers can make simply their local resources. For example, we have a server, we have a file servers or file system, we have a mail slot, we have APIs, we have a printer. So the server can make all of these resources available to the clients on the same local network. So usually 3 main server message block messages with 3 functions available. Start authentication and terminate the sessions. Control the file and the printer access. Allow an application to send or receive a message to or from another device. Now, unlike the FTP, client establishes here a long-term connection with a server. After that connection is established, the user of the client can access any resources available on the server as these resources located locally on the client host. So this is the main difference. The function can be start, authenticate, terminate a session, control a file printer, send or receive messages to another devices. Once the long-term connection established, the resources located at the server side can be considered as resources located locally at the client host. This is the end of the module. And this is the last slide to be covered in module 15.